Hello, everybody.
Good evening. Good evening. I'm Doug Handy.
Hi, and I'm Abir Shinawi, and welcome to Real Talk, Our Space. Good evening, everyone. So today, our episode is still continuing with Maryland stories, or as Doug pointed out to me, America in the miniature, or miniature America. Is that what you called it?
American miniature. I talked to my
American
mom
miniature.
today. I was like, "Have you ever heard that before?" She was like, "Yeah, I have." So
I have never heard of it.
I have
And,
never heard that either.
so,
But
okay, so where did you get it from?
I got it off the internet.
Oh, okay. It's like that. What is it? That Allstate insurance commercial. Where'd she find it? It's all on the internet, so it must be real.
Right.
So,
Right.
but it makes sense. And so today it's a very exciting topic for me because I love talking about religions, but we're talking about Black Catholics,
Yes.
which I
And what?
know. No, go ahead.
What did you tell me about your knowledge of Black Catholics or lack thereof?
Lack thereof is the fact that I never knew Black Catholics existed until I moved to Maryland. I was at, and it's funny because I found out through a colleague of mine who became Muslim but grew up Catholic, and she was, a Black female. I'm like to her, wait a minute, you grew up Catholic? And
Wow.
me growing up in Chicago, the only Catholics I knew were either Polish, Lithuanian, Irish, Italian. It's that
Yep.
stereotype. And then
Right.
when I found that out, and it makes sense why there would be, Black Catholics, but that's how I found out that they
Yep. And of
exist.
course,
They
my experience
exist.
was a little different
Right.
because I grew up Catholic. So yeah, I figured, that's just what I knew. That was part of my lived experience, right? And there weren't a lot of Black Catholics I knew, but
Mhm.
I was in a family that was Catholic, at least part of the family, and we'll talk about a little bit of that today. So
Right. Which is
definitely
fascinating.
some different experiences, and
Mhm.
I know. Well, I was going to share. There's a clip. Not a, it's an internet article
Mhm.
that actually talks about St. Mary's County in Maryland, since we're talking about Maryland stories.
Mm.
And the significance of that is, let me see if maybe I can do a quick screen share. And it's about St. Mary's County being this
Mm.
fertile ground, right?
Very cool.
There you go, right? St.
Mhm.
Mary's County, a fertile ground for Black Catholics.
Okay.
And not to get too far ahead of where we are, but
Mhm.
you'll notice that our guest today has some roots in St. Mary's County,
Mm.
Maryland. So
Okay.
it's just something, for folks to read later. This is from Catholic Reviews. This is from a few years back. But just an interesting read. I've read it. It's a good article just to give you some insight. So
Thank
just
you.
wanted to share that.
So, well, since we're speaking about history, for
Mhm.
many people who don't know, Maryland started as a colony for Catholics.
Hmm.
1632, yeah, established by First Lord Baltimore. There is a Baltimore, Ireland as well. George Calvert. So now we have the city of Baltimore named after them. We have Calvert County, Calvert Hall, as a refuge from religious wars in Europe for English Catholics. And if you know
Hmm.
much about, the English and the Protestants and all of that history, I'm botching it right now. But it says after Lord Baltimore's death, the charter for the colony from King Charles I was passed on to his son Cecil Calvert, second Lord Baltimore. So that was led on and so forth and so on. So it goes on and says that they landed on St. Clement's Island in southern Maryland, where the first Catholic Mass was celebrated by the Jesuit priest, Father Andrew White on March 25th, 1634, now known as Maryland Day. And that's from Napa Institute 2020 online. So I
Excellent. There
thought
you
it was
go.
fascinating, right?
It is fascinating. And I mean, it
Mhm.
actually connects with the article I shared. I don't know if you saw the byline.
Mhm.
November is actually Black Catholic History Month.
Okay.
And it does connect. The article mentions that what you just shared as well, that history. So very, very exciting. So
Very cool.
yes.
So,
Very
good morning. Okay, let me start.
cool.
Good evening, V, who's also a Southsider. I mean, well, she grew up in Chicago like me. She says there were Black Catholics on the South and North sides. Again, I guess where I grew up and, when you're in an insular community, I did not know that. So thank you for
Thank you,
sharing
V.
that
We
as well.
appreciate that. Right.
Before we bring on our first guest, can we share a picture?
Do I have a choice?
You don't actually. You don't. So as Doug mentioned, he did grow up Catholic, which I didn't know. I just recently found that out. But he did share with us, everybody has those quintessential school pictures, iconic school pictures. So we're going to share. Maybe Douglas can share with us what this picture is. And ta-da!
So this is, and of course, so this is me, St. William of York. is where I attended my Catholic schooling. This is grade 8. So this was the graduation, if you will, from Catholic school.
Mm-hmm.
And these are my classmates, and I'm almost smack dab in the middle of the picture almost.
Yes.
Hopefully you can see me there.
He's right under the kid with the no head.
Right.
Kid.
So,
He's in the second row from the top.
yes. And these are, I've noticed one thing I'll never forget. It was me and my 2 Black friends, right? So Jamal and Ryan. Jamal was on the row with me. Ryan is seated on the front row. They were close friends of mine. I was actually friends with all the boys in this class. I could actually name them all. It's just like it was yesterday. So Jamal's on the row with me. Chris is next to me. The kid behind me with no head is Matthew. The kid behind him or next to him is Eric. Front row, you have Ryan, and then you have Garth. Also in the front row. Behind Garth is Chris, another Chris, and then there's David going over from left to right, and then on the far right it is Kevin.
Okay.
And I remember their last names too, but they didn't give me, we
we don't have time for that, but okay.
We don't have time for that. But these are my receipts of my Catholic schooling.
I love it.
And I have I have one of these going back to 2nd grade, but this is the one I share with a beer. And you see what happens when you share with your good friends. They share it with the world on the internet. So
I love it. It's such an opportune time. And your picture, your expression is priceless as well. You look pissed off.
This was the roots. This was the roots right here.
Yeah, and I'm like,
I didn't know why I was angry, but I knew I was angry. Right?
It's
as a Black
grade.
man, I was supposed to be angry. Right?
Okay.
And I think this was the first time I had braces. I believe a whole lot of stuff happened.
Got it. Yeah, it's 8th grade. So thank you for letting me share. Like you had a choice, but that's a great picture. So
I think it sets the tone. Are we like people tuned in for that? Right?
I think so.
And look at V. V is on fire. So we love our guest, our guest, of course, but then also our audience, our listeners, our viewers. Yes, V, you're exactly right. It did close. St. William closed the school, and then now I think the parish still operates. It did, and for those that are, it's at Cooks Lane and Emerson Avenue is where it's located on the west side of Baltimore City, real close to the Catonsville line, but still within city limits. It did close fairly recently. It certainly did.
Cool.
So V knows her stuff.
That's my daughter. She's excited for the show. She better be. She's my child. So there you go.
Yes, we want you to be excited. So we're gonna.
Yes.
All right. So enough reminiscing on St. William, New York. So it is with pleasure. So please do subscribe to our channel. We are very grateful for all of you all. So it's my pleasure to introduce Brother Edward Handy. He's a conventual Franciscan friar of Our Lady of Angels Province. He is a native of Baltimore and the son of the late Alice and Brady Handy. His 5 sisters and his brother all went to St. Pius V Elementary School in Baltimore City, staffed by the Oblate Sisters of Providence. In 2021, next year, he will celebrate with 10 other friars 60 years in the Franciscan order.
Wow.
That's dedication.
That is dedication.
That's dedication.
That's a milestone.
That is a serious. I just want to get to 60 years. So he's been doing what he's been doing for 60 years, and we'll hear about that. So one of the scriptures that Brother Edward reflects upon is Isaiah chapter 43, verse 1. I have called you by name, and you are mine. It is this scripture that God promises to lead the blind to places unknown and guide them. And this promise is one that Brother Edward states that he has experienced firsthand. And last but certainly not least, I must tell you all, Brother Edward, as you can see, Brother Edward is my uncle, and I affectionately refer to him as Uncle Brother. So you might see me go back and forth on today's episode between Brother Ed, Brother Edward, Uncle Brother, what have you. So very excited to have, this is a personal show for me for several reasons, as you can see. So with no further delay, I think we'll bring Brother Edward on.
Hello, Brother Edward.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. And yourself?
Fine, thank you. Thank you for being on the show.
Well, it's my pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
Of course. When Doug told me that you were a brother and you've been in the order for so long, I was like, yeah, why not? This is so exciting. You're like walking history right here for us.
I'm telling you, I can't believe it myself at times. It looks like it's been so fast.
Wow, that's awesome. Well, thank you again for being here.
Well, thank you. You're welcome.
Yeah, definitely
Appreciate it.
appreciate you, Uncle Brother.
Mhm,
So we're gonna jump in and
mhm.
get to know you a little bit better. So I think Abir is gonna start us off.
Sure. So, Brother Edward, so talk to us about your upbringing in a Catholic family and the significance of the Oblate Sisters of Providence. So, for those of us who don't come from the Catholic faith, I know a little bit about it. I went to Catholic school for 1 year. Well, that's a different story. What is the Oblate Sisters of Providence, and then your experience growing up in a Catholic family?
Okay, good, very good. Well, some things that Douglas had mentioned already, which I had planned to mention, that I was born and raised in a practicing Catholic family.
Mm,
My parents are Alice and Brady Sylvester Handy. My father, as Douglas, I think, had mentioned before, is from St. Mary's County, Southern Maryland, which is a very large area of African American Catholics. My mother, on the other hand, was brought up in Virginia as a Baptist,
oh,
but she was converted to Catholicism
okay.
when she met my father, and that was a part of the rules of the Catholic Church that
Mm-hmm.
have to be converted to Catholicism. So my mother was converted to Catholicism, and she practiced Catholicism all while we were growing up.
Mm,
And what did that mean? You know, she went to mass,
mm-hmm.
went to confession, we prayed the rosary together. We did everything that all Catholics were supposed to
Mhm,
do.
Mm-hmm.
mhm,
And that was the beginning. I have 5 sisters and 1 brother.
Mm-hmm.
The 7 of us commuted every day to Baltimore City to school. Unfortunately, the schools in our neighborhood, white Catholic schools, they did not accept African Americans at that time.
Mm-hmm.
So my parents were very much interested in seeing that we did a Catholic education.
Okay.
So we had to travel something like 8 or 9 miles by public transportation every day to Baltimore to go to this black Catholic school, which
Mm-hmm.
was called St. Pius. That was our parish school. And so in this school, we had the Oblate Sisters,
Mm-hmm.
and the first black religious women in the country.
Oh.
They were founded back in 1829 or
mm,
1828, and they still exist today. And their foundress, Mother Mary Lang, who, by the way, is up for sainthood, she wanted to start schools where they could educate like students. And so she and a couple of close friends, they weren't religious at that time, decided to educate like students in their home. And so this went on for a couple of years, and the sisters, they grew in number, the women grew in numbers, and they became nuns, religious
Mm.
in the church. They had a very hard time because even then they weren't completely accepted and so on.
Mm-hmm.
So they had a very hard beginning.
Mm-hmm.
But that was their intention to educate Black American children. The sisters, eventually, they grew in numbers. At one time, there was over 300 sisters. And so with the number, they start expanding their schools across the country, establishing new Black or African American schools for children. And here in Baltimore, one of their first schools that started around the time they started their order is St. Francis Academy,
Mm-hmm.
that started off as an all-girls school. And 2 of my sisters graduated from St. Francis Academy. And so the sisters, they taught in these schools and many other schools across the country. And not only in this country, they opened up missions outside of the country.
Mm-hmm.
I think the first mission they opened up was in Cuba.
Oh, wow.
They were there for quite a few years and had established something like, I believe, 7 or 8 schools. And they operate these schools until Fidel Castro took over.
Mm.
And the sisters and other religious community, they had to leave that country. The sisters left Cuba, which was a Hispanic-speaking country, and they opened up a new mission in Costa Rica,
Mm-hmm.
where my friars also are located. And at one time, I was stationed there myself. So, but the sisters instruct me in my education, especially in my religious education, as did my family. And like I say, I was brought up in a Catholic family, so we did everything that Catholics were supposed to do. We went to Mass, we said the rosary together, we carry out different devotions in the church, and I would say we were good Catholics. And so that's the background of my history of growing up as a Catholic.
So, Brother Edward, just to give a little context for our audience, and I'm a huge history major. So, what time period are you talking about when you were going to school? Can you give us like a time period so people can put in context the difficulties when we do, because that's going to be one of our questions later on as well.
Okay, as I can remember, I think I started school in 1942.
Okay.
It's a long time ago. and Douglas, he and I, his father, he and I, we started school together, although I was a year older than his father. But my parents wanted the two of us to start together.
Oh, okay.
And what a story, because my father had to work, so he dropped us off that morning and told us where to go. And we both were frightened little kids holding each other's hands. But we ended up in the wrong class. We went to the first grade instead of the kindergarten. And we were there for a while before the sister realized that we weren't supposed to be in that class. But out of her goodness and kindness, and I would never forget her, her name was Sister Macias. She was so good to us. And she knew that my father, was from a large family. And so she figured that, well, she can work with us. So we were together for many years together.
That's great.
Right. So, Uncle Brother, I think we were talking before. So my dad was born in 41, I believe. Right. So was he born in 41? I thought you were born in 40. Well, you don't have to say. I
was born in 39.
39. Okay, so he was okay, right. And I always said though that Uncle Brother always looked younger than my dad, even though my dad was younger. So I'm like, Uncle Brother's doing some things that are right apparently. Abir, can we show the picture? So we do have a couple photos since we were before we move on. The one was it's Brady and Alice, my grandparents.
Oh, I love this picture.
Uncle Brother. So I don't know if you want to speak to that at all, Uncle Brother. Anything? It kind of speaks for itself, right?
Oh yes. Well, everyone tell me, by the way, my religious name is Edward. And when I entered in 1959, at that time, we had to change our names to a saint name given to us. And we were supposed to imitate that saint, the virtues that saint lived by that caused him to beatify as a saint. But I was named after my father, Brady Sylvester. And so and by the way, they always called me brother at home because I was the first boy in the family that had four sisters that were older than me. So I guess they referred to me as your brother. And then Andrew, Douglas followed me. Then I had another younger sister.
Okay.
So it was seven of us, 5 girls and 2 boys. So this is my parents' wedding picture.
Do you know what year they got married?
Pardon me?
Do you know what year they were married?
I have that hanging up on my wall. I don't know if I can see it from here.
No, that's okay. I just love this picture. I love the elegance and looking into their eyes and thinking, what are they thinking? At that time.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
And they got married in Baltimore, or did they get married in?
That's right. They got married at St. Peter Claver Church.
Okay.
And in those days, it was very strict on mixed marriages, as they call it. Someone was converted to Catholicism.
Oh, I see.
they weren't even allowed to be married in the church. They had to be
Wow.
married in the rectory of the church. You know, that's very common during those days.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Wow.
Uncle Brother, why don't we? And thank you, Abir, for sharing
Mm-hmm.
that. It's funny because growing up, we always had these wonderful pictures, and of course, that's kind of where it all started, right? Because we had these pictures of
Mm-hmm.
Uncle Brother and my father's generation, and then of course, my cousins and me, and then, but it all started with, we call them Mama Alice and Papa Brady. That's
Mm-hmm.
what
That's
that's
right.
what we
Oh,
refer to them
yes.
as.
But
A lot of
they
history.
they call me Pop Brady today. They say I look so much like my father.
He does look a lot like
Yeah.
him. I remember that, definitely. So, Uncle Brother, take us forward a little bit. So, you grew up, you talked about growing up in the Catholic family, your schooling at St. Pius. Eventually you went to Frederick Douglass High School, a lot of history
That's right.
there. But shortly after that, you decided to go to Watertown, New York. Talk to us about what took you from Baltimore to Watertown, New York.
Okay. I graduated from Douglass High of class 1959 in February. And so I packed my bags and decided to go to the seminary, which was in Watertown, New York. It was an 18-hour train ride.
Wow.
My dad took me to the Baltimore train station a Sunday afternoon or Sunday evening, I guess around before 5 o'clock. I arrived in New York City about 10 o'clock that night, carrying luggage with me. And I mean, those days they were luggage. They were long, big metal suitcase.
Very bulky. Mm-hmm.
And I had to arrive in the Pennsylvania train station. But in order to go upstate New York, I had to get a subway across town to the Grand Central Station. And what an experience that was to get on a subway that hour of the night by myself. I'd never been on a subway before. But, I did it. And I look back and I say, how in the world? Because even today it's frightening to get on
Right.
the subway train. So anyhow, the train, I had to wait maybe an hour before the train took off to go upstate New York. You mentioned the earlier scripture quotation from Isaiah 43, which read that I have called you by name and you are mine. So I used to use this scripture quote when people ask me what made me become a brother or friar. And I say, it wasn't I, but it was God who called me and so on. And in that same scripture, believe it or not, it mentioned that he promised to lead you to unknown, like a blind person, he'll lead you to unknown places. And traveling up to Watertown, I had a map, try to figure out where I was going and so on. And believe it or not, they turned the lights out on the train. So I was traveling blindly. So that scripture was being fulfilled that day. And, so one thing I wanted to mention that when I left Baltimore in February, we had an early spring. The flowers were beginning to pop up and the trees had buds on it. But that 18-hour train ride that took me up to Watertown, when I arrived in Watertown, I was so surprised to see the snow was up to the second floor of the seminary building.
Is Watertown in upstate New York, Brother Edward?
Watertown is 80 miles northwest of Syracuse.
Okay.
It's very close to the Canadian border.
Oh, yeah, they get a lot of snow up there.
Oh, yes. They'll get it, And so what an experience for me. So when I saw all that snow, I said, oh, Lord, I don't think you want me to be here. I was ready to come back home, But I had to listen to the Lord. He wanted me to stay, and he gave me the strength and the grace to persevere. Thank God I did. So that was my trip to Watertown. And it was a new experience for me. It was kind of sad because I left my family behind and starting something new, living with people that I met. First, no one there looked like me. And there was some adjustment. They adjust to me and I had to adjust to them. And so it was very different.
Right.
But as time went on, things got better. And I spent, during my formation, I spent like 2 years in Watertown. And during that 2 years period, I received the religious name as Edward. So
Okay.
it took time to try to get used to that name, Edward.
Right.
And then the next part of my formation was a novice in a novitiate was in Middleburg, New York. Now, the novitiate is a area of training that all religious people, brothers, sisters, nuns, brothers, sisters, priests, we all have to go through this training. And the emphasis on learning how to pray, live the vows, how to live in community. And it's a very structured time of our training. It is said that our training as novices in the novitiate is similar to what boot training is to military people.
Oh, wow.
And so during that time, we learned a lot about the order,
Mm-hmm.
and then the constitutions, and like I say, how to live our vows and so on. So I was in a class of, I think it was 23 of us at that time. Today is not that number at all. You may get one or two that enter.
Oh, yeah. It's dwindled.
Yes.
Is this part of that mission when you
That's
went to
right.
Watertown?
Yes, that picture there, that's when I was in Middleburg. I was a novice.
Okay.
And as a novice, we learned to say the official prayer of the church, which we call the Liturgy of the Hours, divine prayers. And we're praying for the universal church.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very complicated to learn. There's a lot of ribbons and turning pages here and there and so on. So it took time to learn. There is a calendar, a liturgical calendar that we follow according to the feasts of the day and so on. And this is an obligation that lasts, stay with us as long as we are friars. We are obligated to pray together in community.
Mm-hmm.
And even at times we have to pray private. So it's a part of our religious commitment.
Wow.
Yes.
So let's talk a little more about the ministry, Uncle Brother. Once you became a friar, there was a ministry, right? And
yes.
I don't know if Abir remembers this. Abir, I gave you a little background. You all actually have something in common, you and Uncle Brother. So
I was never in the ministry. I don't know.
No, you weren't, but we were all teachers at some point, the three of us. And
is that the connection?
Yes, but
Okay.
I'll let Uncle Brother talk. There's a little bit more. It's a connection that you have with Uncle Brother that I don't. But yeah.
Okay.
I'm
excited to learn.
I think I took your question too.
No, that's okay. So you're going to describe the ministry as a teacher, and I want to see this connection, Brother Edward. Come on now. What do we got?
Well, let me say that the brother and the priest vocation is a little different in what they do. As you know, you're probably familiar with the ministry of the priest. Very few know about the brothers.
Right.
Brothers are not ordained ministers in the church. We take religious vows just like the priest. We are consecrated religious. And so our ministry is very different. Some brothers, like myself, are teachers. Some go into social work. Some go into healthcare programs or social programs, working in various cities and parishes, feeding the poor, and so on. So our ministry is different from the priesthood, but I had followed the ministry as a teacher. I was able to go to school. I got a BS degree from SUNY University in New York, University of New York. Also, later on along the line, I got a teacher's certification for teacher of special ed from the University of New Jersey.
There you go.
Oh, yes, that helped.
Because I have a master's in special ed. That's the connection.
So let me tell you about my teaching career. Okay, I taught in many of our Franciscan parish schools. And one of the schools was my favorite place. I was in Hoboken, New Jersey, for 15 years. I spent 40 years working in New Jersey in different schools. So it's this school in Hoboken. I was there for 15 years, and I taught, all the grades that were taught in grammar school. 3 of my students that I taught later on became priests.
Oh.
So they are priests today, and which gives me a good feeling that, these are products of my teaching and so on. And so I taught there for 15 years in Hoboken, and then I was assigned to a high school in Trenton, New Jersey. I taught theology there. I was there for 3 years. And when I think of that place, I have to laugh because it was back in the early 80s, and I had a full head of hair, and a nice thick mustache. And the students always referred to me as Friar Prior.
Like Richard Pryor.
I didn't have the size idea what they were talking about. And so I walked down the hall and they were saying, "It's Friar Prior," so on. Douglas, I don't know if I can show you. I just happened a picture close by.
Sure, if you lift it up to the camera, we could probably see it.
Just to show you what I look like.
Absolutely.
Man.
Let's see. Oh, there you go. Lift it up a little bit higher.
There you go. Yeah, there you go.
There you go. That's a great picture.
So, anyhow, they call me Friar Prior.
Friar Prior. I love it.
I say, well, I hope I don't use the language that he used to use.
So I have a quick question, Brother Edward, really quick. I'm running on tangent. So is the difference between friars and priests is priests can conduct religious ceremonies in a church and brothers don't? Or are you like restricted to certain parts of the ceremony or the mass, or you can't conduct mass?
Well, there are certain parts of the mass we can participate in. We can be readers of the scripture.
Okay.
And we also can be Eucharistic ministers, to distribute communion to the people.
Okay.
But the rest of it is mostly left up to the priest. You mentioned something that maybe I should explain. A lot of people do not understand what a friar is. The word friar comes from a Latin word frater, which means brother. And we're all brothers, whether we are priests or a brother like myself. We are brothers. We live in community and we share one another, share with one another. We have the same religious vows. We follow the same constitution. We eat our meals in common. We dress alike. You couldn't tell the difference between a priest or brother, and they walk in the room. And even for us, at times, we don't know if they're priests or brothers. So we'll play it safe and call them friar. So that's an easy way of coping out, copying out. But as to answer your question, there are certain things we can do in the Mass, but the priest is the real minister of the sacrament.
Okay. Thank you for explaining that to me.
Yes. Abir, we had I guess a couple comments, I think, right? You wanted to.
So this is Rhoda Ismail. We went to school together, like in middle school, high school. How are you, Rhoda? Thank you. She's like, mashallah, awesome show. Appreciate it. Thank you for tuning in.
Thank you.
Yes.
You're welcome.
Yes. And we have my former student talking about students. Yes, Brother Edward.
Oh, that's good.
Josh Golfin, thanks for tuning in. So we have a couple of people tuning in and, saying hi. Again, please tune into our show on YouTube, Real Talk, Our Space.
Well, thank you very much. And it's been an honor and a pleasure to share a part of my 60 years of life with you.
We're just getting started, Brother Edward. We still have more pictures and other things that we want to discuss.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, Uncle Brother, sticking with your ministry, I know one ministry that's been very special to you because you've shared with me quite a few stories about it and how much it meant to you. Talk about your ministry at St. Bridget's residence program.
Yes, I can't forget about St. Bridget's. St. Bridget's was a program that was directed by the Archdiocese of Newark, New Jersey.
Okay.
And it was a transitional therapeutic program for men that was homeless men living with HIV and AIDS.
Oh, wow.
And the
okay.
program was geared to help men to live independently. So we had a lot of life skill programs that would help them to, after they're there for maybe a year and a half, some may stay a little longer, that they're able to go and function on their own. A lot of the men came to our prison system, or some of them were just homeless or came from other shelters. We had 35 guys in the program. I worked the second shift where everyone was home at that time. In the morning, they used to leave to go to other therapeutic programs, but they'd come back around dinner time. And so we would have a full house. And a part of my responsibility was to keep order in the house and break up arguments over TV or whatever it was. I had to assign them to do house chores, which they weren't too happy with that. And I also developed an archives for the program, kept all the records of the guys that were in the program. And many times someone wanted to come back. We didn't have an open door where they could just come and go. So we really screened them before, we took them back, how well they cooperate when they were with us. I had many, many responsibilities there. I did the orientation when they first came in, make sure they had a clean room to go to, and we had like a large laundry basket, and all their needs and necessities were there for them. I also supervised for the cook at times, and couldn't keep a cook. Every time you turn around, the cook was leaving.
Oh no!
And guess who filled in?
You did.
I had.
What did you make that was the best thing ever, Brother Edward? What did you cook?
Everything.
And while he pops his collar, I like that. He pops his collars. Yeah, everything. Okay.
Everything. And I, without bragging, I think I was a good cook.
Okay.
That was a part of our formation in the early days. We had cooking classes because we knew there are times we may be assigned to some place where we didn't have cooks and we had to do a lot of things for ourselves. And I enjoy cooking. Even to this day, I like to surprise one of the friars when his birthday or name's day, make a nice cake or something.
Oh, that's nice.
And so I enjoy doing that. So St. Bridget's, I always looked upon that particular vocation was very similar to our founder, St. Francis of Assisi, who back in his days worked with the people that were rejected, like the lepers in his time. And today, many people refer to people with HIV and AIDS as modern day leprosy and so on. So I felt that I was on track by, working with people of that nature and so on. And so I did it for 22 years. And that was my last assignment before I moved down to Baltimore. Now, before I started working at St. Bridget's for the same program, Catholic Charity, I was a teacher of special ed. And I worked with students that couldn't function in the mainstream. And many of them were very hyper. Many had discipline problems, behavior problems, and so on. So you have to deal with that besides, their learning disabilities and so on. I did that for 8 years. And then from 8 years, I switched over to St. Bridget's, which I was there for 22 years.
Wow. So
and
we have,
brother. Yeah, but to say, there you go. I'm sorry.
There, yes, indeed.
So speak to us about this sketch, this paint. Did you draw this yourself?
Well, no. One of my parishioner friends, because I was involved with a community workshop, and they asked certain friars to display a table of their ministry. And so I mentioned to one of my co-workers who was an artist, and she came up with that. And I thought it was a good description of me working with people with HIV. And as you can see, look like a young fella in a suit jacket is coming into the program.
Right. That's wonderful.
Yes.
Thank you.
We do have another comment. I know our dear friend
Mhm.
Keith Lewis. So Uncle Brother, Keith's a dear friend of Abir's and mine. And
Mhm.
last week when we were talking about coming on, Keith also attended Catholic school
Mhm.
in the elementary grades. So we just had a little discussion about that, and he was excited. So I'm glad that Keith's here with
Mhm.
us this evening. So
Yeah.
Mhm.
So, Brother Edward, you did allude earlier with your introduction about growing up about the fact that schools were segregated. Not just Catholic schools, but I think American society in general was
Mhm.
segregated. So, can you talk to us though about how Black Catholics were treated differently during civil unrest in this country, Jim
Okay.
Crow era, the segregation era? So, like I said when I met you, you're walking history.
mhm.
So, would you be, willing to share some
Oh, yeah,
experiences you may
yeah,
have had?
I will. And thank you for asking.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Jim Crow and all this we went through as Black people, uh, it hit all areas of life, even the church,
Mm-hmm.
the schools, and the church. Um, Growing up, we had our Black Catholic Church, which we had to travel so far to go, but there were other closer Catholic churches in our area.
Mm-hmm.
If we went to those churches, the ushers would usher us to the last back pews in the church.
Wow.
We couldn't just sit anywhere, or we had to go upstairs in the choir loft, and we weren't allowed to go up to receive communion until the whites had received, and so on. You almost hate to think about it, but that's what it was in those days. And
Wow.
yes, and thank God it has changed. It's changed a
Mhm.
lot. Today, Black Catholics are welcome in all Catholic churches, as far as I know, and so on. And we do things different than we did in those days. We have our service, the Mass, set in the vernacular, in the language, our language, so you understand what the scriptures are, and so on.
Mhm.
We share with people of different denominations. We have prayer groups together, study the scriptures together, and we have a good relationship because we realize we're all children of God.
Mhm.
So it has changed a lot, but this is a part of our Black history that
Mhm.
we have to deal with.
Absolutely. I guess if I could, one thing I want to share, if I look at like my upbringing in elementary school and even being, I visited Uncle Brother where he is now at St. Casimir. I
Mhm.
helped him move back to the area, which
You
was
sure did.
one of the
Yes.
highlights
Yeah.
of the past few years for me, and just feeling very welcome. When we went up to New Jersey, I stayed at the guest house, and
Hmm.
um, it's I guess that sense of community that he's talking about. As not, of course, I'm not one of the friars, but feeling welcome, feeling, um, I guess living the values, right? Talking about, what God would have us do, treating each
Mhm.
other the way we're supposed to treat each other. And
That's
like you're
right.
saying, Uncle Brother,
Yes.
I would say, and Beard knows this, we're hypersensitive to any type of discrimination
Yep.
or aggression towards us as people of color.
Right.
Yes.
I experienced none in spaces I've been with Uncle Brother recently. So
That's good to know.
certainly, I certainly appreciate the change because I didn't have to live through some of what my elders and Uncle
Mhm.
Brothers folks had to live through. So
Mhm.
That's right. Before I sign off, I just want to say, Abir, I'm so glad you finally met a Black Catholic.
It's
Uh,
changed my life. It's opened my eyes to, and I pride myself on being pretty knowledgeable about religion and other cultures, but I guess that's my little like ignorance that I have to admit that I didn't know. And, for me growing up, like I said, I never came across a Black Catholic.
yeah. But we're a small minority group in the church,
Mhm.
ethnic group. A lot of the
Right.
Catholics came from Europe, and so it's Irish or Germans or Spanish
Mhm.
or I mean French or Polish or what. But African Americans came here under a different situation.
Correct.
We didn't come without freedom and so on. But in the Catholic Church, there are many African American religious priests, brothers, and nuns. In the Catholic Church, we have three distinct different religious sisters. I mentioned the oblates that taught me in Baltimore. There's another group upstate New York called the Franciscan Sisters, Handmaids of St. Francis, Franciscan Sisters of Handmaid. And they work in the New York area. And then down the south in Louisiana area, which is another large Catholic area like Maryland, there's another order of sisters down there called the Holy Family Sisters.
Okay.
And they do, all of them do very similar work, teaching and doing social work and reaching out, to help the community. And besides, we have many African priests. We have a few African bishops. One time, I know it was 12 African bishops. Some of them have died, so I don't know exactly how many we have right now. But even when I wear my religious habit out in public, people, they stop and ask me, "Are you Catholic?" They kind of have a hard time to believe that you are.
So I'm not alone. I'm not alone in this concept. So
this is not a Halloween outfit I'm wearing.
You know what, Brother Edward, you and I are in the same situation with that one. I've heard that one before too, about the whole Halloween costume. I get it. I feel your pain.
Yeah.
I feel it.
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah.
So, Uncle Brother,
we sure have a lot in common, right?
That's it. A lot, right.
Yeah.
You heard about the special ed connection. I don't know if you heard that.
Right. But I also did go to Catholic school for 1 year. I really did, and it was a very small school. It's called Nativity BVM of the Blessed Virgin Mary, but it was predominantly Lithuanian. And I learned a lot from the nuns and the sisters, and the other students. But being the only Muslim student there was a bit daunting, because I would always be not picked on by the nuns, but, in our religion, we fast and we abstain from eating and drinking all day.
Right.
And so the nuns would get mad at the kids when they wouldn't do their Lent and say, "See, look how good that Muslim student is." I'm like, "I'm in 6th grade. Please don't call me. I just want to make friends. Sister Gemma, leave me alone." So it's a great...
Right. Yeah. You want to blend in with the rest and so on.
Right. Leave me alone, Sister Gemma. So, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So, Uncle Brother, you pointed out a few changes, especially around, race and more acceptance, if you will. How about any other changes that you've seen in the Catholic Church over the past decades since you became a brother?
Yeah, I think, like I mentioned, that we have ecumenical services together where we can come and we pray with people of different faith and so on. And we study the scripture. More than we did when I was growing up. Catholics didn't read the Bible. But,
right, I remember that. We had the missalette, right? We didn't even have the Bible.
Yes, the catechism where you had the question and answers,
Yeah.
And so along that line, there's a lot of change, and to attend Mass in a language that you understand. When I grew up, it was Latin,
Oh, wow. Yeah, right.
Yes, and you didn't always understand, what was going on. And so that's what I can think of right now.
I always remember Latin. Oh, this is so stereotypical of me, but watching The Godfather and them saying Spiritus Sancti, I'm like, I think that means like the Spirit of God or something.
That's right.
That's where they want to go and kill somebody, but that's about it. So we have a quote from Keith. There's a significant announcement made today. Oh, yes, by the Pope.
Oh,
correct.
Oh.
Regarding LGBTQ community.
Yes.
Yes. So talking about on the same lines of how the Catholic Church has changed, Pope Francis, correct? Is that his name? Correct me if I'm wrong, Pope Francis.
Pope Francis, that's right. Yes.
Coming out and saying, we accept people from the LGBT community and having them be, having homes and all that. So thank you, Keith, for schooling us.
I'm laughing at Keith. Exactly. Yeah. And then like, just like the educator he is, right? Correct.
Well,
right.
One thing we can say for the church, we do change in according to the times,
Right.
We don't just keep doing things that we used to do and so on.
Yeah. So,
Mhm.
Brother Edward, would you advise young men to enter the ministry now? Because I know you had mentioned when you started at like 20, 30 people, and now it's barely one or two.
Yes. Well, first thing, I feel a vocation is a divine call from God to
Mm,
call to come and serve Him. It's something you just can't impose on anyone.
mm-hmm,
Although I think you can give encouragement, you can show a good example,
mm-hmm.
and you leave it up to the Lord to choose or accept
Right.
people. No doubt we are in need of more vocations, and so we'd like to see more come in, but we hope and pray they come in with the right reasons and so on. And even if they do come in with the wrong reason during their formation, they are quickly weeded out.
Mm.
Mm,
It's like that military boot camp that you talked about.
That's right.
You
right.
ain't gonna make it.
Right.
Right. So, Uncle Brother, even though we started with our, St. Mary's County, where
Mhm.
Papa Brady was born, but we
Mhm.
started your journey really in Baltimore. So we
Mhm.
know, like you said, back in 2018, it was a blessing. I felt to spend that time with you, help bring you
Mhm.
and your belongings back to Baltimore. What did make you, when it was time to retire, what made you decide to return to Baltimore and to St.
Okay.
Casimir's?
Okay. Well, my problem is we have control of something like 53 or more locations, and
Mhm.
north, south, east, west, and so on.
Mhm.
I wanted to come back to uh, Maryland because first it's my home state, and Baltimore is not the same as it was when I left. Streets and everything have changed, and I'm living
Mm,
in a different area that I uh, uh, brought up in.
mhm.
Uh, but I wanted to come back so I can be close to my family. We're aging and so on.
Mhm.
Mhm.
It was difficult at times that you couldn't always be near your family, for
Correct.
different occasions and
Mhm.
so on. And then too, I enjoyed coming to St. Casimir because the friars I live with, they're very good friars. I enjoy working with them. We have a good relationship. As you saw before, the Andy came in right away to help me, get
Help you
started.
get connected, right?
And
He's a
so
good
that
little
thing,
lad, that Douglas Handy.
so anyhow, they were my main reasons to come back to be close to the family.
Okay,
Well, that's
good.
always
And,
a
and next
great
year,
reason.
yeah, the next year, the order should be celebrate my 60th birthday.
Oh, that's awesome. Or is the public invited? Because I'd like to be invited to that celebration.
I'll keep you in mind. I'll keep you in mind.
I went to the 50th. It was something
That's
special.
right,
So
you did. That was up in Clifton, New Jersey, huh?
went to New Jersey, right, right. So
Wow.
Yes,
I tell you,
right.
Uncle Buddy, and a beer loves a party. So if you
I
say she can come
do.
Oh,
celebrate,
good. Oh,
she'll
yeah.
she'll be there. Maybe we can broadcast live. Imagine
Oh,
that
Ooh,
nice.
that's a
real talk
great
live from the
idea. Yes.
the
Oh, you'd be
60th anniversary.
surprised how the brothers and sisters and nuns know how to get down.
Oh, I'm sure. Oh, I'm sure. Listen, my 1 year in the Catholic school, I learned a lot.
Oh,
Let's just put
yes.
it that way.
Oh, yes.
Stays with you.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we do have a great question back to our friend Keith. Uncle
Mhm.
Brother, I want to get your take on this. Do you think there will be any other significant changes to come as far as the Catholic
Hmm.
Church?
It's a great question.
Well, it probably will be. I would like to see the day where we have women to participate more in the liturgy. We might have like some of the non-Catholic churches that
Hmm.
deacons, what they call them.
Hmm.
Yes. So and they would do very good. So that day may come where we might have women more involved in the church.
Mm,
Um,
Time has come.
oh yes. Oh yes.
I like
Hmm.
that one. That's great. Allowing women, and I think the concept of the role of women play in all religions is always one up for changing and discussion and debate as to what role they should play. So I don't think the Catholic Church is alone also in that concept at all. But that's it. Thank you for mentioning that because I think
Hmm.
it is one that's also underplayed. I don't think a lot of people pay a lot of attention to it
Right.
either.
Oh, yes.
So I believe we showed all of our pictures. I was so sad, but I'm going to flash this one up one more time. Yes, that's Doug right there. That's a great one. So,
Right. See, Douglas. Hey, Douglas, I have to tell you, other day, our mailman who deliver our mail every day, he from his car, he throws it up to the door, and many times he misses and go into the shrubs. Well, Sunday, I went to look to see what's the mail. Our mail was the, I'm sorry, the newspaper. The
Mhm.
newspaper.
Uh-huh.
And I see this guy get out of the car, and I thought for sure he was you. He looked just like. I said,
Oh, wow.
is this a second job? And he has newspapers.
You never know.
Yeah, right? That's true.
Mike.
So, go ahead, Douglas.
No, I'm just the joyfulness, right? So Uncle Brother
Mhm.
always puts a smile on my face. So if that picture puts a smile on his face, I'm happy to. I'm
It is
happy
going
to
to put a lot of
show it.
smiles on a lot of people's faces now. So,
It's all good.
Oh, thank you.
so
All right.
Brother Edward, we have like 2 more questions left for you. But
Yes.
before we continue, I'm a history nerd, right? But I was just telling Doug that this is oral history in the making. Like, I'm so happy we had the opportunity to record you live, and we have this forever as a part
Yes.
of history. Being part of the Black Catholic Order in Baltimore is definitely historical. So I want to honor you and thank you for being on our show and
Thank you.
sharing your lived experience, because I think it's very important that we continue, your legacy on for the rest of the world to show. So I want to personally thank you for being on our show.
Thank you. You're welcome very much. And like I say, it was my pleasure to be a part of it.
So I have my favorite question that I'm going to ask you now. So let's make you think, Brother Edward.
Okay.
So which artist would you have perform an album about your life, and why? And what would the album title be? Now, maybe it'll be named after a famous saint. I don't know. So what do you got for us, Brother Edward?
Well, that's a kind of a hard question for me, but like I say, I mentioned to you before about how my students used to tease and call me Richard Friar.
Uh-huh.
He could perhaps play me as,
Okay.
The other person that comes to mind is because many people told me that I look like him, and that was Norman Freeman.
Or Morgan Freeman.
Morgan Freeman.
Morgan Freeman.
Oh, yeah.
Morgan Freeman, yes.
I love Morgan Freeman. He's actually my mom's favorite too.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Wow.
She loves it. What about a musical artist, Brother Edward? If you had somebody sing an album about your life, is there a favorite artist you would have?
Oh, let's see. Tell you the truth, I really can't think of one right now.
But I think that's an interesting notion, right?
Mhm.
Imagine we have Richard Pryor as the artist, and he had several albums, as a lot of us know, and the album probably could be called Friar Pryor,
right? And then we can have Morgan Freeman's amazing, like, baritone voice,
Exactly,
giving
doing
the
some narration.
narration of Brother Edward. Yes,
I can see it coming together, a narrative.
yes.
So, Uncle Brother, we have one more for you. This is the challenge, okay?
Mhm.
Okay.
And so bear with me on this. So I'm gonna give you a little history. The time I spent in New York City was always visiting Uncle Brother in Hoboken. My dad would take me. He would take us, the family, take my mom, my dad, my sister. We would go visit Uncle Brother in Hoboken, and then we would go visit New York City because it was
Right.
nearby. So New York being, some people say, the greatest city on earth, also known for the birthplace of hip hop music and hip hop culture. And Uncle Brother, I'm thinking there's no way that you spent all that time near New York and didn't pick up some hip hop culture. So the 4x4, we asked, and Keith won't let me get out of here without this, but do you have any hip hop artists from the 4 pillars of hip hop that resonate with you? So we have MCs, DJs, break dancers, graffiti artists. Do you have any artists from any of hip hop that really resonate with you?
Well, I always did like Michael Jackson.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Um, Well, I can't think of many right now. That's a really question.
Okay. Well, that's why it's a challenge. So
But the King of Pop is very good.
yes, and
Can never
certainly
go
has
wrong
had
with
he
MJ.
has had an influence on hip hop. We know
Yes.
that. A great
Yes.
influence. Okay. All right. So we'll. All right. And that was a curveball, right? So Uncle,
Yes.
we got to keep it interesting. So
Right.
Uncle Brother, I want to thank you as well. It's really been a special time. All right. And Keith says I could give him MJ.
It gives
All
you a
right.
stamp of approval, Brother Edward.
Right.
And I
Keith
really
is
enjoyed it.
good. We had a good time. We appreciate you. We appreciate what you shared with us.
Mhm.
And we're looking forward to the 60th. As that celebration comes together, please, I know he'll be keeping me in mind. I know we have, we can add to that guest
Me
list,
in mind.
right?
Okay. All right.
All right. But thank you for your time, Uncle Brother.
I'll be
We
somebody's
appreciate
+1.
And feel free to visit anytime.
Definitely. I'll take you up on that offer.
yes.
Definitely.
We have a beautiful church here. Very nice.
And
Yep.
I've been telling my daughters I need to take them to different they've never been to a Catholic church. I think they're gorgeous, great
Oh, and
structures.
the church is amazing, Uncle
Okay.
Brother. Right.
Field
The
trip.
church is, yes.
Field
There
trip.
you have it.
So thank you,
Yep.
Brother Edward. Again, I appreciate you. We are honoring you. Thank you for your lived history and hopefully many more to come. Do not forget me for your 60th.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay, good.
I'll put that on my calendar.
I'm sorry.
love it.
I just had our friend Joe. He likes to come in
Yes.
and put his stamp on as well. So MJ was special indeed.
Yes.
So just like Uncle Brother Edward, MJ was truly special. So
Definitely. Icon.
thank you for your time. We appreciate you.
Thank you. Have a very good night, Brother Edward.
Okay.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
Good day.
Good night.
Thank
Good
you.
night.
God bless you too. Good night.
Thank you.
Man, that was I love it. And I'm learning
good.
so I think for me, you know me, I'm like a people person, especially if I
Yes.
really like people. And I'm learning so much about you and your family. And I love the connectedness
Mhm.
that you have and the beautiful relationship you have with Uncle Brother. Is that what you called him?
Yeah.
Uncle
Which
Brother?
some people think is kind of crazy. And I have an aunt sister too. We had an aunt sister and Uncle Brother.
There you
People,
go. I mean,
but it just
whatever.
rolled off the tongue. That's
Mhm.
right. That's what we call them. Yeah.
So thank you for sharing your family's history with the audience, Doug. I think it's very generous of you.
Thank you.
I
You took
appreciate
my
it.
word. Well, thanks for creating the space. And I must say, we started this in June, and
Mhm.
Vera gave me the space to talk about my father. That's my father's. My father, may he rest in peace,
Mhm.
may he rest in power. That is my father's only brother. So Uncle Brother is special to me in many ways, and that is one of many. And hopefully we have some of my aunts on as well. Some
That'd be
of them have
great.
passed on.
Mhm.
But we appreciate Uncle Brother, appreciate the time. Joe said he's sorry. Joe, anytime you spend with us is great. You can get to the recordings.
Right.
So thank you. There's a lot of appreciation, right? A lot of gratitude.
Yes,
Thank you, Keith. Summed
we
it up
do.
nicely. So next week we're gonna go deep into the hip hop. So Keith, we
Mhm.
got you. Other hip hop heads. We're gonna touch on Maryland stories. We have a few of my close friends that'll be here with us, and they'll talk a little about their connection to Maryland. Some of them are from Maryland, but they all have some connection. Talk about hip hop, of course, maybe a little bit of hip hop or influence on politics since we have a big election coming up. So it should be a good discussion.
That's actually the show before the election.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
It's a show
Right.
before the
So
election.
yeah, we don't want
Mm.
anyone to forget about that. So it should be fun, right?
Yes.
So
Yes.
and our friend, yes, Corey Carter. Shout out to
Mhm.
Corey Carter. I want to thank him as always for providing us with intro and outro music.
Yes.
Appreciate you.
You can
very
follow him
much.
on Twitter at Mr. Carter Teach as well. And again, if you want, like what you saw, please subscribe to our YouTube channel at Real Talk Our Space. And our Gmail is exactly the same, Real Talk Our Space at gmail.com. Not very difficult. So
Not at all.
great
Easy.
show.
Easy
Yes.
button. Yes. Great
So
show.
thank you,
All right.
everybody, for tuning in. And next week, we will have our special hip hop show. Until then, have a very good night.
Take care.
Bye.